It was a brisk autumn evening when the cracks in my life began to surface. My wife, Claire, had claimed she was out with her friends, leaving me at home with a bottle of wine and an old movie to pass the hours. We had been married for 7 years, long enough to understand each other's routines, quirks, and subtle tells. That night, however, something felt amiss. Her voice on the phone had been overly cheerful, her laughter unnaturally exaggerated. I dismissed it, telling myself not to read too much into things. Claire walked through the door just after midnight, giggling like a teenager sneaking in past curfew. Her cheeks were flushed, her hair slightly tousled, and a distinct scent of unfamiliar cologne clung to her. My stomach churned, but I forced a smile, pretending everything was normal. Claire flopped onto the couch, kicked off her heels, and looked at me with an unbothered grin. "You seem to be in a great mood," I remarked, setting my glass down. "Yeah, it was a fantastic night," she replied, her voice unusually high-pitched and almost giddy. "The girls and I just had some drinks and laughed a lot. Nothing wild." I nodded, observing her closely. "Glad to hear it," I said. As the night dragged on, I noticed her avoiding eye contact and clutching her phone like it was her lifeline. Suspicion crept in, but I stayed silent. Confrontation wasn't my style, not yet at least. Instead, I chose to wait and watch. After all, trust was the cornerstone of our marriage, or so I had believed. The following morning, Claire was oddly cheerful, humming a tune as she prepared breakfast. Her phone buzzed incessantly, but she ignored it. When she left the room, my curiosity got the better of me. Heart pounding, I picked up her phone and unlocked it. A passcode we both shared as a symbol of trust, now a bitter reminder of naivety. The messages were incriminating. "Last night was unforgettable," read one. "I can still feel your touch." My vision blurred as I scrolled through the text from a contact named M. There were photos, too, taken in a dimly lit hotel room. Claire was laughing, glass in hand, leaning intimately against a man I didn't recognize. My world collapsed in that instant. The betrayal struck like a physical blow, leaving me gasping for air. I carefully placed the phone back where I'd found it, forcing myself to stay composed. Anger would come later. For now, I needed clarity and a plan. Claire returned to the kitchen, oblivious to my discovery. She kissed me on the cheek and handed me a plate of eggs, her smile as radiant as ever. How could she pretend everything was fine after what she'd done? Over the next few days, I became a ghost in my own home, watching, listening, and piecing together the extent of her deception. What I initially thought was a one-night mistake turned out to be an ongoing affair. Claire and M had been meeting secretly for months, stealing moments I believed were ours. Rage simmered beneath the surface, but I didn't confront her, not yet. Instead, I channeled my energy into collecting evidence. Text messages, photos, even a hotel receipt carelessly left in her purse. I documented it all. A plan began to take shape, filling me with grim satisfaction. On the surface, I was the same devoted husband. I cooked her favorite meals, laughed at her jokes, and even planned a weekend getaway. Just the two of us. Claire appeared relieved, as though my attentiveness had absolved her guilt. Little did she know, I was setting the stage for her downfall. The weekend trip was my masterpiece. I booked a secluded cabin in the mountains, serene and picturesque. Claire was ecstatic, eagerly talking about how much she needed the escape. I meticulously packed our belongings, ensuring every detail was flawless, even including the camera gear for my newfound pastime. Claire didn't question it. The first evening was enchanting, at least on the surface. We sipped wine by the crackling fire, reminisced about the early days of our relationship, and even swayed to the rhythm of a song beneath the starlit sky. But my mind was elsewhere, fixed on the culmination of my carefully laid plan. The following morning, I told Claire I wanted to capture some scenic photographs and encourage her to stay in bed and rest. She obliged, burrowing deeper under the blankets while I gathered my equipment and stepped outside. However, instead of snapping pictures of the landscape, I set up cameras around the cabin, carefully positioning them to discreetly capture every angle that would reveal the truth I needed. When Claire finally woke up, I proposed a hike, claiming I had discovered a picturesque spot nearby. She hesitated initially, but eventually relented. We spent hours meandering along the forest trails, and for fleeting moments, I nearly let myself forget the pain of her betrayal. But only almost. Back at the cabin, Claire's phone buzzed incessantly. She glanced at the screen, her expression shifting to irritation. "Work stuff," she muttered dismissively. But I knew better. That evening, I prepared her favorite meal and kept refilling her glass with wine whenever it got close to empty. Her laughter was carefree, oblivious to the tempest brewing beneath my calm exterior. When she excused herself to use the bathroom, I seized the moment. Picking up her phone, I sent a single message to him. "Let's end this." Then I erased the thread, leaving no evidence behind. By the time we returned home, Claire had slipped back into her usual demeanor, her laughter resonating through the house. But when she reached for her purse later, her face turned ghostly pale. She rummaged through it, panic mounting with every passing second. "Where is it?" she muttered, her voice quivering. "What's wrong?" I asked, feigning concern. "My wedding ring, it's gone," she whispered, tears pooling in her eyes. "Oh no," I replied, my tone saturated with mock sympathy. "When did you last have it?" Her gaze met mine, a mixture of guilt and desperation clouding her face. I don't know. I must have taken it off somewhere. Of course, I had hidden it. The ring, once a symbol of our union, had become a tool in my retribution. The following day, I put my plan into action. I compiled a file, painstakingly detailed, containing evidence of her infidelity, photos, messages, and even receipts she had carelessly left in her purse. I placed it prominently on the kitchen table, certain she would find it. When she did, her face drained of color. "What is this?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "The truth," I said coldly. "Something you've been keeping from me for months." She stumbled over her words, attempting to justify her actions, but I raised a hand to silence her. "I don't want your excuses, Claire. I want you to leave." Her eyes widened, tears cascading down her cheeks. "Please, we can work through this. I'll do anything." "It's too late," I replied, my tone resolute. "You made your choice, and now I'm making mine." I had already consulted an attorney, ensuring the divorce would be swift and overwhelmingly in my favor. The evidence I had gathered was enough to secure everything. The house, the car, even the savings. Claire never saw it coming. As she packed her belongings, sobbing uncontrollably, I felt nothing but detachment. She had dismantled our marriage and obliterated my trust. This was justice. In the weeks that followed, I began to rebuild my life, piece by piece. Claire, on the other hand, was left floundering. Em had disappeared, abandoning her to face the fallout alone. Mutual friends distanced themselves from her, aligning with me once they learned the truth. She lost everything. One evening, as I sat on the porch with a glass of whiskey in hand, I reflected on the whirlwind of the past few months. The sting of betrayal lingered, a faint ache in my chest. But alongside it was a profound sense of accomplishment. I had reclaimed control, refusing to remain a victim. Claire's laughter no longer echoed in my mind. It had been replaced by my own, a sound born of freedom, resilience, and the sweet satisfaction of justice.